that we had a good discussion yesterday. Today, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the. It was supposed to be about the films that have made me a filmmaker and what I use, and then I realized that yesterday it went long because I've done a lot of documentary work and a lot of television work. So I said in the introduction to yesterday, I would keep my film work for today, as well as the films that inspired me. And so I think together we'll have an interesting session, I hope. I'm sure you'll let me know one way or the other. Um, what I wanted to talk about first of all today was when we left off yesterday, and if you weren't here, then I'll just tell you, I was showing some rap videos that I had done. And that rap was in its nascent days. So I had a really interesting time. Uh, it's pentamic, the early rap kind of the way rap was being done originally was very interesting to me. So I kind of delved into it a lot. I did a lot of rap videos. And while I was doing that, my agent called me up and said, listen, there's a company called Canon Films, and they like your work, and they want to get you involved in a movie they're doing called Rapping. And I don't know if you guys remember Canon Films, but they were run by Menachem Globus, Menachem something or other, and Yoram Globus, Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus. And they were characters, they were Israelis, and they had actually found a way to make a lot of money by owning theaters, making very low budget movies, and they were automatically in the black. As soon as the movie opened up, they were in the black. So anything they made extra was blacker and blacker, which was great. But they decided they were going to become, filmmakers. And so they started spending a lot of money on not terrible movies, but spending a lot of money. They gave Sylvester Stallone $12 million to do a film about arm wrestling. And long story short, they had done a film called, I think it was called Dance Something Electric Boogaloo, that became like the #2 film in America. And it was hip hop, and it was the beginnings of hip hop. And it was, it was a bad film, but it did very well. And so my agent said, they saw your rap video for Run DMC and the one you did for Houdini, et cetera, et cetera. They have a film that they want you to write a film project for them and direct it. And, that's all I wanted to do was make movies. I was 23 years old. And, I thought, okay, well, let's see what it is. Well, Menachem and Yoram are psychopaths. And it was just a horrible, 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 horrible experience. Except I started writing this movie with a friend of mine called Rappin'. And since if you really look at rap in its early days, it's very iambic pentameter. I know people will laugh, but to me, it reminded me of Shakespeare. It was, and what we wanted to do, Robert Litz and myself in Rappin', was try to take that and tell a story vis-a-vis the rap medium. But I mean, there would be dialogue, of course, but then there would also be rapping, which also allowed me to be the 6'1", 220-pound Italian Jew who was writing rap music, which was I still have the album here. My daughter torments me with it. She always likes to show it to her friends so they can laugh at me. But the album did well, and the movie Rappin' opened up #3 in the United States, and it was a big thing. The problem was that it was Canon Films. So we were dealing with Mario Van Peebles, who was a fairly big actor at the time. He became a director. He did New York. He did a movie that was a very big hit. And his father was an original writer. But here I was writing this film called Rappin'. I don't have a clip of it because, sadly, my house in Pasadena was burned, not completely down, but a lot of it was burned. And one of my 2 editing rooms on the property was completely destroyed. So sadly, there's a couple of films I wanted I can't find. Then the original prints for 5 of my films got toasted as well. So that's not good. But at any rate, if you ever do get a chance to see Rappin', I don't know if you'll like it or not, but I do know that my co-writer, who had won not the MacArthur Award, but there's another award for theater. He had won this big award for theater, and when the movie came out, Rex Reed, in his review, said, "Whoever wrote this movie should be hung by their thumbs until they promise to never write a motion picture again." And we lost Robert after that. He disappeared for 2 days. I don't know. I think he got very drunk, and we finally found him again. But the Cannon Film people were intent, because the movie did well, and they wanted to do another and a bigger movie. So we got a call to go do a film called The Ultimate Solution of Grace Quigley with Katharine Hepburn and Nick Nolte. So my God, that was a miracle. And I get a call from Cannon, and they say, Ms. Hepburn would like to meet with you. Then she wants to go over the script, and she wants to talk to you about it, because the director of A Lion in Winter, Tony Anthony, was directing the movie. I don't think he was too happy about me or Robert Litz, my co-writer, coming on board, but that's tough. And I didn't care, because I was going to meet Katharine Hepburn, which I didn't. So we go to Katharine's apartment, and there she is. And she's just the most she was a beautiful woman. She was 79 years old and just stunning, so nice. And I remember going upstairs into her townhouse, and all over the townhouse there were oh, Julia, when you raised your thing, I thought you were raising your hand. I was laughing. I thought I was in school. But we went upstairs, and there were all these artifacts and gifts that had been given to her. Like there was a cigarette holder from Bogey and Susie, which was Lauren Bacall, and that was her nickname. And there was the original painting from On Golden Pond that Hank Fonda did for her on Golden Pond. It was an amazing thing. And while we were there, we had been warned previously that Ms. Hepburn was not a big fan of cooking or food, or I mean, she didn't cook, but she had cooked. But you thought it's Katharine Hepburn, you'd have a fine lunch. We were warned that, I think the guy who took us there said, she cooks, quote, Yankee fare. Now, whatever that meant, I got Yankee fare. Okay, so that sounded to me like very simple food. So what we got was like Kraft cheese soup and like a grilled cheese sandwich, which was fine. I didn't care. It was Katharine Hepburn. So we're sitting there eating it. And while we're eating it, she starts reading one of the scenes that we had written for the script. And I'm just sitting there with I have a spoon and my mouth is open, and she goes, "Young man, if you're going to sit there, put some food in your mouth." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." Yes, ma'am. I mean, well, what could I say? It was Katharine Hepburn. But Robert, who was older than me, and he was a known writer, he turned to me and he said, "I hate actors." And I was like, "Oh, shut up. It's Katharine Hepburn. What are you talking about?" So it was funny. And the end of that story was I had been making money by shooting for various companies, because I was a cinematographer, videographer, what have you. And I was shooting for Entertainment Tonight, and we were supposed to shoot Lauren Bacall. So we went to the Minskoff rehearsal studios to pick her up. I think she was doing applause. And when we got up to the rehearsal hall, there was a set up, and they were shooting a commercial for the Broadway show. So the director of the commercial was a wonderful guy named Steve Friedman, who was a very famous commercial director. And he came over to me and he said, "Have you worked with her before?" And I said, "No." He said, and he kind of shook his head, and he said, "Get ready." He said, "Listen," he said, "since we're already set up," and they had like 70 instruments set up. It was great. He said, "Since we're already set up, I'm going to break for lunch." And they were a full union crew, so he said, "I'm going to break for lunch, and I'm going to give them an hour." He says, "You think you can get your interview done in an hour?" And I wasn't doing the interview, I was doing the filming, but the woman doing the interview was right there, and she said, yeah, we'll date it. And he just said, look, just make sure of one thing. All the lights in the room are set up for her to be sitting at the piano because that's the scene they're rehearsing. So make sure you sit her right here at the piano. And he showed me, you know, for the lighting where to put her. And I said, great, no problem. So we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and the tick, 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 tick. And there's like about 35 minutes until the hour's up. And finally, La Bacall walks out, and she's obviously not in a great mood, or maybe she's just always not in a great mood at that juncture of her life. I don't know. But she came over and she sat completely the wrong way on the piano bench. So I was a kid, and I went over and I didn't push her. I just put my fingers on her shoulders and said, if you just moved a little to the left, the key light will hit you at about 45 degrees and it'll look plus perfect. Well, when my fingers touched her shoulders, I swear she spit on me. It was horrible. She was so upset. She said, don't you ever touch me. And she went off. She was swearing at me. It was terrible. I honest to God, it's funny. I was a boxer in college and I was a thug. But I swear to God, I think I was going to start crying. It was like, because I was, it's Lauren Bacall, Lauren Bacall. So I tell you this story because at the end of my meeting with Katharine Hepburn, things had gone so well that we were speaking just, like I'm talking now. And I told her this story. And I'll never forget, Katharine, Kate, as she had us call her, said, Betty can be such a bitch. And she said, hold on. And she called on the phone Lauren Bacall. I'm sitting there and I'm freaking out like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And she goes, Betty, I'm sitting with this young man, Adam Friedman. He's doing my movie and you were a bitch to him. And she just went off. And the end of that story was she puts me on the phone with Lauren Bacall, and Lauren Bacall says, well, I live at the Café des Artistes building on Central Park West. Come have a drink with me and I'll apologize to you. And I said, okay, well, sure. And sure enough, I left and went and had a drink with her. And it was just a magnificent end to a magnificent day. And we did write some scenes for the movie, not all of them, as Mr. Anthony had written the original script, and he was not a happy camper that we were working on the film. But that was my Lauren Bacall experience. And then just as an ender to that story, the other experience was a 3 o'clock in the morning phone call from a very intoxicated Nick Nolte, who was at the Gramercy Park Hotel. And he said, come on, we need to talk. And I said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. He said, it's okay. It's New York. He says, come down and talk. So I spent from 3 till 4:30 in the morning having drinks with Nick Nolte as he sort of discussed, because he was drunk as a skunk. And he was the greatest guy, though. He became we became, I can't say friends, but we were friendly. And that was my canon experience. But that got me wanting to direct. Although when we finished the Rappin' script, Canon offered me a directing job on it. And to be honest, I'd already done the Rolling Stones. I was working a lot. And I thought, you know what? There's going to be a lot more films I can direct. And I didn't feel Canon films they felt so B-team. I didn't want to do it. It was a mistake. I should have directed it. But the movie did come out. And as I said, it was the third highest grossing film in America. And I did more work for them. But that got me convinced that I needed to do a movie. So we wrote a film called Medium Straight. And let me show you a little clip of that. And Julia, I think what I'm going to do is just show the clip of Medium Straight, which is the second film on that, on the reel I gave you, Adam Friedman. It's the rip reel Prob 4 MP4.
Like a roller coaster. You get your ups, you get your downs, and you've got no control over any part of it. Once you're on, you just cross your fingers and go for the ride.
What, no chemistry set? No scales? It's nice to be trusted. Trust is so very nice. Really stupid. Kind of like you. Now just get out of here. Come on, Manucci. Want it? Take it! Yo.
Where'd it come from?
You don't need to know. You don't want to know, Pat.
I don't even want to talk about this. You and your junior wise guy scam. Don't you learn nothing?
It ain't the way it seems.
Well, why don't you just tell me the way it is then?
Well? Pat!
I shot somebody. What?
Struck by went bad. I ended up with the paper and the coke and the guy's gun.
And the guy?
Well, he kind of didn't make it.
Well, is he still kind of alive?
Not really.
That's it. Thank you, Julia. So, so medium straight. So I don't know if you noticed, but the last actor, the guy in the baseball cap, is Richard Schiff, who, you know, he's become pretty famous. He's a great character actor. He was in Jurassic Park. He was one of the leads, and Glenn Ross, where he was one of the leads. And but his most famous role was as Toby in West Wing. He suddenly got hair somehow. And I think yesterday I told the story of me working with him. And he was a difficult human being to work with, but he was one hell of an actor. He's just a brilliant actor. And as I said yesterday, I'll just repeat today a little bit. Sorry if you're gonna hear it twice, but he taught me a great lesson, because at that juncture, if I had asked someone to do something on a set and they didn't do it, I would respond in a very aggressive manner, let's say. And one of the things you do on a set is, we were shooting single camera. So with one camera, we were shooting a close-up. When you're shooting a close-up, it's usually proper film etiquette to get the actor that's in the scene, but who's not on camera, to go over the shoulder of the camera person and become an eye line for the actor who's being filmed at the moment. So that was going on, and I asked Richard, I said, can you come over here and be the eye line for Jerome and see what happens? And Richard said, no, I don't do that. Like, I don't do that. He'd never been in a movie before. He's like, you don't do what? And I was gonna go off, and then I thought to myself, you know, that would be so idiotic of you. He's the best actor on this set. If you're such a good director, you learn to direct him. You learn don't hit him, learn to direct him. And it was a good lesson, and it stuck with me, because God knows I've run into a lot of actors, boy, and some of them are difficult to work with. Some of them are, you know, create an epiphany, but some of them, and he was in the latter category, but he's a great actor. And I will tell you one funny story about him, though, because I can always show you pictures and clips, but you should hear some funny stories. I was on the Warner Brothers lot about 12 years ago, and I had just done the Blue Angels 50th anniversary, which some of you who were here yesterday, I showed you a clip of that. And John Travolta, that's where I met him. And Travolta, who's a very wonderful pilot, he's actually one of the few, he's cleared to fly a 747. He actually flew one for Qantas Airlines. I mean, it was a publicity thing, but he still flew the plane. But he also has a private collection. He's got a 727, like Trump actually had one. He has a RAF Vampire, which is a fighter plane from the 60s, the UK. Anyway, um, uh, he was, for some reason, I guess he was walking around Warner Brothers as well. I was with a casting director, and as we walked by the commissary, the entire cast of West Wing came out, and the casting director I was with knew a lot of the people in the West Wing. So it was Martin Sheen, Bradley, Cyber, or whatever his name is. Richard came out, a bunch of other people came out. So I sat down, and we sat down, we started to have lunch, and we were talking about shooting and whatnot. I suddenly see Richard Schiff, who's facing me. You know, we say hello, you know, we were always friendly, but, you know, kind of like removed friends. And he's looking over my shoulder at something, and his face, which is always in a perpetual scowl, kind of breaks into this kind of smile, like, you know, a beckoning smile. And I don't look over my shoulder. I don't know. I'm sure he sees someone he knows. And suddenly I feel a hand on my shoulder, and I turn, and it's John Travolta. And I'm sure Richard thought he was coming over to say hello to him or to the other combined actors on the thing. But, you know, John, as I told you yesterday, I love him, said, Adam, how you doing? He says, I haven't seen you since the Blue Angels thing, which was about 2 years previous. And we just started talking. And then I started introducing, I said, this, obviously, you know, Martin Sheen. And he said, yes, of course, I love West Wing. And it became a very nice thing. But there was Richard, whose, you know, beautiful beckoning face had turned back into a scowl because I had gotten him good on that one. It was a funny thing. But anyway, that's my story about that. The movie Medium Straight was, you know, we shot it in 3 weeks. It was 7 days a week for 3 weeks. It was, we shot it in Delaware. And it was an incredible experience because, like anything, it's like driving a car. You know, when you sit with a driver and you're a student, you think you know what you're doing because you watch the guy and he's doing or the woman and she's doing the steering wheel, or if you're shifting the car, you do that. But what happens when you get behind the wheel, especially like on a non-automatic car, which I know are less and less today, but when I was driving, you know, I love the stick shift. It's hard because, you know, to figure the clutch out right, to do that. And even an automatic car is hard. It's like you can watch till you're blue in the face. I can watch a director on a set, but then to see, to actually have to do it, it's a whole new ball game. So what Medium Straight did for me was give me a chance to, you know, throw myself in at the deep end and see what I could do. And it was an amazing experience. We won the Fort Lauderdale Film Festival. I got Best Director as well. And we were in Cannes. We were Critics Week at Cannes Film Festival, which was great. Harvey Weinstein said he was interested in buying the film, and we actually got, not into a big bidding war, but First Look Overseas bought the film, and Robbie Little, who owned it, said, oh, this is like the first film noir film I've ever seen. I really like it. And it was a whole thing. The film did okay, but I got it. It started me directing films. So it was a really important film in that regard, and I'm very proud of it. There are things I would have changed. As I said yesterday, I'll say it again. I was so arrogant about directing that I just figured as long as I had a script that I could, you know, that I partially liked, I could make it great. Same with the actors too. I figured some of the actors were people I had worked with in theater, and I thought, oh, I can do this. Well, that's wrong. There's a phrase for it. It's BS, but that is BS. It's wrong. If I was to give a piece of advice, and I do whenever I talk to film school students, I say, look, you get a good script and the world can be your oyster. You can get a good script and make it better if you're really a good director. Even if you're a medium good director, you can take a good script, and if you're not stupid, you won't ruin it. If you're not a good director, it's moot. You shouldn't be directing. Here's a quarter, call your mom, say you should be doing something else. So I think I learned a lot. Well, I didn't learn enough from it, but I learned some things from it. And it's it was a great experience, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Then, at that juncture, I decided I better move to Hollywood because I was living in New York while we shot it, and Robbie Little at First Look Overseas gave me a first look deal at First Look, and so we moved to Hollywood. And I wrote a film, but it didn't get made. I wrote another film, it didn't get made. And you know that there's a syndrome, you know, people that do that. They make a living doing that. It's terrible, and you know, it makes you want to commit suicide because you put your heart into a script and then suddenly it doesn't get made. But that's what was happening. And my agent called me up and said, "Hey, Adam, you know Roger Corman?" And I think most people know Roger Corman. I said, "Of course I do." He goes, "Well, he's got a vampire movie he wants you to direct." And I was like, "Dude, this was at the Cannes Film Festival. I'm not doing a horror film." And he goes, "Yeah, you are. You should. It's Roger Corman. It'll be good." He said, "You know, Francis Ford Coppola started there. Ronnie Howard started there. Tim Burton started there. Jonathan Demme started there." I said, "Okay, well, that makes sense." So thus began my To Sleep with a Vampire adventure in my life. I want to say though, the first time I met Corman, we got along famously, and he's a character. I mean, you know, he had a lot to do with 8½, Fellini's 8½. I mean, he brought in a lot of great independent films into America, but he also did, you know, he was the one who did Easy Rider. So he's done some great things, but he also does some really bad things. And I wanted to be, of course, in the former category, to doing great things. And when he saw some of the first dailies that I had shot, he called me in. And what I later found out was there's a thing where Corman either accepts you or he doesn't. So out of about 200 directors that he's worked with, he's accepted 25 into the Roger Corman School of Film. And I don't have my jacket with me, but it didn't get burned up in the fire, thank God. It's hanging in a frame. But he gave me the Roger Corman School of Film jacket, which is an honor that I love to this day maximally. And he brought me in for what is called, you know, his conversation. And in this conversation, he tells you what are the most important elements of a motion picture as per his experience. And I'll never forget it. He said there's 4 things. He said there's business, movement, depth, and coverage. And of course, I knew basically what all 4 was, but he then, you know, illustrated each one of them. You know, he says, like, when I was shooting Vincent Price, we shot outside this hallway to give depth. Business, you need to have the actors moving around. You can't be static. Of course, Alfred Hitchcock would disagree with him, but that's another story. Coverage, of course, is coverage. Just make sure that there's something for the editor to cut back and forth to, so it doesn't look like you're staying on someone's face for too long. It doesn't work. Anyway, he gave me this great lecture, and I still have the paper that he gave it to me on, and I have it in my artifacts that also luckily did not get burned up. While shooting the film, though, I started to learn the Roger Corman method, and the Roger Corman method is infamous. I mean, he's no fooling around. Now, there's a story that if you follow film, and I know, Julia, you said your, I don't know if it's your husband or your boyfriend is a film historian, but there's a great story about Howard Hawks on a set. Dennis Hopper tells a story of Howard Hawks not doing his days. So doing your days means there's a certain amount of film you need to shoot to keep to schedule. If you don't shoot it, you're adding time to the schedule, possibly money. If you have to reshoot something, that's going to be more money. And of course, budgets are dependent upon time, etc. So according to this story, Howard was taking a little too long to shoot a script, and Louis B. Mayer walked on the set and said, "What's the problem?" And he said, "Well, I'm just having some trouble with the script, et cetera, et cetera." So as the story went, Louis B. Mayer took the script and ripped out 20 pages and said, "Here, you're back on schedule again." And it's a very famous Hollywood story. Well, I was on the set with Roger Corman when that really happened. It wasn't me, but there was multiple films being shot in Venice, California, where his studio was. And there was a director who was the worst thing for a director, by the way, is to be indecisive. That's just a piece of knowledge. A crew will not respond to an indecisive director. It's a terrible thing to see. And if you're ever on a set when it's happening, you'll see the crew starts pulling back and it gets very ugly. As a matter of fact, I was on the set of Bright Lights, Big City. And the first director on that motion picture was a young woman by the name of Donna Deutsch. And she had done some independent films that had done really well. So the studio decided to take a pretty big risk because, Bright Lights, Big City, big movie. And what they did was she'd have a set, she'd have a shot, and then she wouldn't take it. And, a crew will start getting very antsy when that happens because, crew on a movie that big is about 125 men and women or more. I mean, if it's Star Wars, it's 225 men and women. But in this particular, it was New York City. And I was standing next to the head camera operator, who was also the union steward there. And I saw him and I knew him. And he actually turned to an assistant cameraman and he gave him a look. I swear to God, it was kind of like one of these looks. I didn't know what it was. I later found out, though, that what he did was he'd gotten the other cameraman to take the next couple of takes, the next day, it was like a third of a day of takes, and put them all slightly out of focus. Well, you can imagine what that did when they were in the dailies and they're seeing all these shots out of focus. The producers went crazy and they blamed Donna Deutsch for it, which is impossible to imagine why. I mean, a director isn't looking through the viewfinder when the film's rolling. So I don't know how they quite got there. I think what it was they knew the crew was revolting. And so the next day she was fired and they brought in Jimmy Bishop. He did John Travolta's, he did a lot of films with John Travolta. He did Grease and he did Urban Cowboy. And the next day they brought him in and there were no other problems. But again, that was a great lesson for me too, because I would rather say something, say it authoritatively and get the shot. If it doesn't work, I'll get it again somehow. I'll work it out. But it's more important for me to keep a crew, working well and working together. At any rate, I've yapped about it enough. Julia, nice human being. Could you show Sleep with a Vampire, please? It's short. It's just a little clip.
Please don't go ahead. Please. No.
You can cut. So let me explain. So that moment in the film is, I don't know if any of you remember it, but there was a Michael J. Fox show in the family, whatever. Michael J. Fox show, and Scott Valentine played, had a big role, and he was a boyfriend of the young lady in the show, and they wanted to make him into a film star, and he was fine to work with. The young lady in the shot is a woman by the name of Charlie Spradling, and she was a very difficult young lady to work with, and she had just done a David Lynch film with Nicolas Cage, and David Lynch called me and said, "Oh my God, you know, she's a great actress. You gotta hire her." And you know, I met her, and I don't remember the meeting was. I just remember her talking about her getting arrested because her boyfriend had done something and she had keyed his car, and when he came after her, she pulled a gun and tried to shoot him. So I was thinking, maybe this isn't what I want to work with. But Roger was convinced she was, you know, the neat plus ultra, and we were going to work with her. Well, so as the show was going on, we were having some difficulties, she and I, and it sort of all came to a head one day. This is going to be a funny story because I told you how I worked with Richard Schiff when I wanted to be cuckoo, and I didn't give in to my lesser angels. In this particular case, Charlie told me that her mother was coming onto the set as well. And I said, that's great, you know, have your mother on and whatnot. So after dinner, we were shooting a scene and she kept messing up her lines. And when she got her lines, she wasn't reading it right. It was bad. And this all sort of came to a head when I had the script supervisor read her lines so I could get the blocking right for Scott and the lighting right. And I turned to her and I said, Stacy, I should have hired Stacy here because she read the lines a lot better than you did, Charlie. So, and boy, that was the end of that. She went into low Earth orbit. And me, I should have just stood back and just let her, you know, spew and we'd be done. But it had been all day long. It happened to be my birthday as well. And it was sort of like, this is wrong. And this is not what, I'm not supposed to be here. I was just in Cannes 2 years ago. I mean, this is wrong. And long story short, there was a big glass coffee table and I picked it up and I threw it till it hit the cyc, and which is the wall around the studio. And it shattered. And I just remember standing there. It shattered into hundreds of thousands, like a little shards of glass. It was like, you know, it was like being in a snowball, you know, only it was glass. So glass was coming down. It was horrible, and I was a fool. But I think it's a funny story. However, the pièce de résistance was her mother was on the set, of course, which that also made me, I said, oh boy, that's going to be terrible. The next day, I'm in my dressing room, and this amazing basket, like with wine and, you know, fruit candy and everything, comes in with a letter. And the letter was, Dear Adam, I want to thank you for letting me be on the set yesterday to watch you direct my daughter. And I want to thank you for letting me know that the term movie magic is for real. Because I saw a 100-pound coffee table fly through the air with the greatest of ease. And my daughter behaved herself afterwards. So thank you. So I kept the letter. It's good. It was funny. I made a fool of myself. Luckily, I got out of that one okay. The movie did very well. Roger was infamous at that time for doing like these low budget movies and, you know, like just the title To Sleep with a Vampire, you know, and what that infers. I mean, there was no, I mean, it wasn't even R-rated, but it was, you know. It was one of only 2 films that year, and 5 out of 300 films he's ever done that got a theatrical release. So that made me proud. And Roger gave me my Roger Corman School of Directing jacket. And so I made money, but it was just a beautiful moment. And I was friends with Roger until his passing last couple of months ago. So it was a great project. All right, let's move on. About that time, I went through an experience that was, I did a movie for HBO called Mr. Atlas, which was just a horror show. Not a horror movie. It was just a bad show. And I was dealing with 2 producers on the show, one of whom wanted to direct. And so what they did was every time there'd be a scene, they'd say how bad the scene was, or every time we look at dailies, it was how bad it was. It was a terrible experience, but it was an important experience because I learned, one, you sort of need to read what you're doing as you're coming onto a set. You need to read what's going on. I had no idea that the two producers, these two females, there were three female, one was a writer, one was a producer, and the other one was a line producer. And the line producer and the producer, I think, were either having an affair, falling in love. It was a whole mishigas. But they got them to sort of, you know, say, well, we're going to let the line producer direct. And so I said, well, and they said, okay, we don't want you to direct anymore. And so as I was leaving, I had this amazing experience where the entire film, the camera crew and the lighting and grip crew, the lighting and grip crew was a big famous Hollywood crew. They were great. Petey the Pope, they called him, was the head of the lighting and grip crew. And they left with me. And I don't know, you know, I mean, I've never been fired off anything in my life. So it was like, well, so that was a horrible experience, but it was a brilliant experience to have a whole crew just backing you up. And, you know, we were set loose in Utah one night, and I think we made the most of it. I learned a lot, and I ended up suing them and making an incredible amount of money. So that was good, but it was sad. Next movie I want to talk about was a very important movie for me, and I had a great time doing it. It's called Playing Patty. It was about my wife was, at the time in the 70s, the highest paid child actress in Hollywood. She and Jodie Foster were best friends, and there was a great line that my wife said that I didn't put in the film. Oh, I did put it in the film, where she says, you know, when I was a kid, I thought I was everybody's favorite little blonde-haired child actor. But then I found out I was everybody's second favorite blonde-haired child actor, of course, referring to Jodie Foster. And she was my favorite little blonde-haired child actor, but that's another story. What I wanted to do was try to show what it would be like to be, you know, a child actor, because, you know, child actors, they're always getting in trouble. Horrible things happen. And I don't know, I think my wife, the only horrible thing my wife would say, she married me, but that's okay. We've worked it out over 25, 26 years. I'll show you a clip. Before I do, though, Julia, Brad Dourif was one of the stars of the movie, and you should know him. He was Billy Bibbit, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He should have won the Oscar. He was nominated for an Oscar. He should have won it. Richard Beamer, who did win an Oscar for West Side Story, is in the movie, but I don't think you'll see him in these clips, but that's okay. You can see the movie. And Raymond Cruz, who's a wonderful actor. He was on The Closer for like 12 years. If any of you watch Breaking Bad, he was the Sicario head bad guy there, and he's just a wonderful, nice human being, a great actor. What was very funny is he actually comes from a very I don't know that he was a gangbanger, but he comes from a gang area thing. And he said he wanted to play, came to me and he said, I really want to play the actor as a gay guy. And I said, okay. I said, try it. Let's see what happens. So let me show you the trailer first, and then I want to show a couple of clips from the film, Julia. So let's show the trailer first. And so the trailer's on one reel, and then there's a separate reel that's the whole movie. So let's show the trailer. It's right. It's the first film on the right. You know where it is. That's my wife as a child actress, and this is my daughter.
Say Honey, Patty Cahoon! Cameron, this is Patty Cahoon. I met her on my very first job. She's quite the little actress.
Great. That's good.
So how have you been?
Good, good.
What do you do? I didn't know you were still acting.
Well, I quit for a while, but now I'm back. So what do you want me to do? There's no sides or anything.
Well, there's not really any lines. I mean, you're a cockroach.
Oh.
It's a giant cockroach. It dances.
Until it dies.
When it's sprayed with bug duster.
Oh. What do you want me to do?
You know, why don't you get up and just have some fun with it?
Okay.
And
Dancing cockroach. Okay.
action.
I loved it. You?
Yeah, mostly.
Started out as fun. 5th grade, I was king. Then it happened.
What?
I grew 6 inches in 8 weeks.
No. Oh, Jesus.
I watched the show all that season. I kept talking about how I was away at school, and I'm thinking, no, I'm not. I'm sitting here watching this piece of crap. Looked like it was gonna last forever, and then it was over.
Yeah.
Endless summer turns to fall. You like surf movies?
Yeah.
Only for me, not being Mikey Munster took quite a toll on my little 14-year-old psyche.
What about your parents?
I'm not sure, but I think they like Mikey Monster a little better than Buster McDougal.
Okay, now Buster McDougal, what was that show?
That was me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so was everybody else.
Oh.
I learned to cope my own special way.
Drugs?
Lots of blow.
All addictive behaviors are dependency disorders.
What about drinking?
84, 86, 88, 90.
You regress me back into that stage, okay, by all this attention and so on.
92.
Ooh, ouch, mommy.
That kind of shirt that says that.
No.
Oh, I take it.
Really?
Mikey's been making big doleros.
Can I take your picture?
Yeah, sure.
You're so big.
Yes, I am. It'll be $10.
Thank you. So I forgot to mention that was Patrick Warburton, who's he's in South Park, and he was a Putty in Seinfeld. He's very famous and does a lot of work, and he was a wonderful actor. And to tell someone who really was hitting sort of the height or getting to the heights of his career, say you're going to dress up like Mikey Monster, wearing this stupid suit. And he loved it. He just went after it, and he was hilarious. In fact, we shot there's a whole sequence. We shot it at, as Patty called it, a whatever became of convention. But, there's conventions, where, former actors go and they sign things. So those are real people. That person came up there and said, "Can I shoot your picture?" And, it wasn't scripted. He went with it. And to me, it was one of the best lines in the movie. And she goes, "You're big. You're a very big person." He goes, "Yes, I am." And we just started laughing. We had to cut. Jeffrey Lyons called it one of the best films of the year. Sony bought it, and then they didn't release it. It got a minor release, and then it killed me because we loved it, and it was weird. I want to release it now because it was a different set of filmmaking. But I don't care because you make a movie, and I was proud of it. I just want to show just 2 more little scenes. Julia, if you could go, I gave you 104.28. Can you show that?
Oh, Ray? Yes. She says she's one of the stars.
Patty Cahoon, how are you?
Oh,
We're glad you could come join our little gathering. Sure, remember you. We've been trying
This is the actual convention.
Here, we looked all around.
Thank you so much. This is... What do I do?
Well, people come up and
That's
wanna
Timmy
make sure
from
they're
Lassie.
getting stuff to sign and-
Okay. Patty, oh my God, Patty, I can't believe to meet you. I run the Here Come the Brides fan club. Oh my God.
Can I have a picture of you alone, please?
Sure.
It means so much to me.
Okay. Just
you.
okay.
Oh, thanks so very much. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure meeting you. What's your name?
Lori.
Lori. Hi, Lori. Patty. Nice to meet you.
Okay. You're from the Apple Dumpling game, right?
No, Apple's way. Okay.
Okay, that's good, Julia. And then, so that was, as a filmmaker, was interesting because I did not have control of that environment too much. That was a real convention. She went in, and since she had been a child star, I was hoping, and we got people recognizing and interacting with her. It's a funny scene in its entirety, and I was very proud of it. There's one more scene I want to show you. I'm going long. I'm sorry. You know it, Julia. You're smarter than me.
Yes, you are.
No, honey, we're gonna go to the party. Come on, let's go.
Please, 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 please. We are gathered here this evening to celebrate the birthday of someone we all love very much, Patty. In honor of this occasion, we have a special gift. And to present this special gift, we have a special person. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you the toast of Kansas and lately of Oz, Dorothy.
This gift will help you go where you want to go, but you've always had that power, but you wouldn't have believed it until you learned it for yourself.
And what did you learn, Dorothy?
Well, I learned that if I ever go looking for happiness, I only have to look in my own backyard.
Someone get a lady a chair?
Well, now I know I have a heart.
If you only had a brain.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, you can cut. So anyway, that was playing Patty. As I said, Jeffrey Lyons went crazy. We sold it. It was a big thing. I wish it had become a big movie. But I will say in closing on that, oh my God. What am I saying? I have one more. I know I'm running late. Okay, well, anyway. However, I'm a documentary maker as well. And I was blessed to meet Anne Globe, who is a very wealthy woman from Scotland who wants to help African women deal with the various health issues they have in Africa. One of the most pressing is fistula, which I didn't even know what it was when, sadly, when I was told about it. I thought it was a martial arts. I didn't. But fistula is when there's the doctors in Africa, few of them are adept at cesarean section. So babies will die in the womb. and for some reason they can't expel the remains of the child, and bad things happen, holes in the bladder. It's terrible. And in Africa, which is not a great place to be a woman anyway, the men in the village will do everything from banish the young lady, or, you know, worse. We found one woman, they put her in a hut that had no window, that had windows but no closure, door open, and of course hyenas, et cetera, et cetera. It was terrible. So this woman, Anne Globe, said, listen, I want to do a documentary. And we talked to Meryl Streep, and Meryl Streep said, yeah, I want to do it. And Melinda Gates, we had a bunch of people. So now that, Julia, you know where that is? The trailer for
Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. In Africa, 1 in 39 women will die during childbirth. 1 in 7 women will suffer serious complications giving birth. 1 in every 6 children will die before the age of 5. A dedicated group of humanity is determined to change this. And not wars, politics, or disease can stop them.
If I am healthy and I am educated, I can make a contribution to my family, to my community, to my religion, and to my country.
The reason it's such an enormous problem in Africa is really down to the lack of good maternal health care.
Anne is highlighting this critical time for women and girls and saying there is a solution.
And all you need is some decent anesthesia, a table that tilts back, some scissors, and some decent suture, and you can cure that patient.
One of the most dramatic stories comes from a friend of Nurse Bernadette.
She came and grabbed me. I said, oh my God, thank God. I have finally seen Yatta. Maybe this problem will solve.
But for external empathy with total strangers, many of those women probably would be beggars in the streets and so on and so forth. But no, giving back to society, and they become productive.
These women are way out in the bush. They've got no help. They've got no money to get them to help. They've been out of society for so long. You've got to think about how you prepare them for the future. We come across this B-box idea. You can give somebody 2 lights. You can give them the ability to charge 5 phones a day. You can put a fan on it if you want, and a radio. This puts them in a new light. This puts them in a different position with the rest of the village.
Without a woman, there's no society as far as I'm concerned. Let's empower these women.
Good. This lady.
I forgot everything once I got my treatment. It's like I'm born again.
We are doing what we're doing because we're passionate about what we're doing, and we believe that empowering the women to go back and make the changes in their community for their family and for their community, that they will do the work, but we've got to give them the real ability to go back and do it themselves.
stop writing about it and start doing it.
So that was that. The movie, the UN called it the most important film of the year. We sold it. It was in theaters. It's on Netflix, had it for a while, and then for a couple of years, and then it went to Apple. So that was an amazing experience, and we were very proud of it. And you know, it was a difficult film to shoot. We were very proud of it, and Meryl loved it. She was, by the way, that was the last thing I'll say. What a magnificent human being. Just she came in, we worked together. She let me direct her, which is, you know, that's difficult. When you reach that height, you know, newer directors are not really tolerated. I mean, Gene Hackman said to me, just tell me when lunch is, and if I'm doing it, if I'm too loud, say go to 10. If I'm too soft, say go to 11, and tell me when lunch is. I said, no, that's not what I'm going to do. But that was Gene Hackman. She was, we argued about some things, and then it just went really well. So it was an honor to work with her. She was a wonderful human being. And I'm sorry I went over time, Judy, but I'm glad I got a chance to talk to your people and show some good films. And
well, we have a few more minutes, Adam.
well, if there's any question, I'd be happy. Whatever.
Yeah. Can you tell? Well, I have several questions, and then I hope other people will come in too. How did you get access to all these places in Africa?
Well, primarily, you know, the beginning from Anne Globe, because she had the hospitals that we shot in, she had built them. She had orphanages. We shot in Nairobi, Kenya, Nairobi, Malawi, Sierra Leone. It was, and these were all places where she had orphanages or hospitals, so that was good. Sierra Leone was, you know, that's the worst place on earth. It's sad, you know, it's just, you know, but the worst place on earth. Some of the people were great, but it was an honor to do something well and to see some people, you know, get better. I mean, we could actually see, you know, people operated on and doing well. And the one thing I didn't mention that thankfully the trailer gets into is Anne was very, there was a gentleman, the Nobel laureate, Wole Soyinka, you know, was talking about, you know, because I'm against people giving money to people in Africa. He said, I'm against it because it's like letting a bear go into a trash can and pull out a hamburger. You know, the bear's going to start looking at more trash cans to get hamburgers. Because I want to give people pride, you know, give them, but you know, you can't just say that and then they're going to say, doing what? So Anne was giving out these like little mini solar powered generators, and the stories were amazing. In the film, you'll see, you know, some of the women that were kicked out of the villages come back, they're healthy, and they've got these generators, and they started their own companies, and they were using the power from the generator to, one woman was doing tobacco, and she became the wealthiest person in the village. She became like a leader in the village. And so what an amazing thing to see. So our access was due to the people that Anne was dealing with primarily from thing, but she didn't know. We knew Meryl. We brought in Melinda and Meryl, but the locations were absolutely Anne's. She pointed us in the right direction, and then we started meeting people. And then, you know, once you start filming, you know, I'm sure no one will be shocked. Once the cameras start rolling, a lot of people start coming up. Oh, you should come over here. We're going to do this. You know, we had a legless soccer team, you know, that in Sierra Leone. You know, most of them didn't have legs. You know, I mean, they had one leg and they were crutches, and they were great. They were a good soccer team. So it was an honor to be involved with that and to be around those people.
I also have a question on, you've used your family in a number of your films. What's it like to work with family? I would imagine, and I'll let you answer, that it has its pleasures, but also some complications or difficulties.
Absolutely. You weren't here yesterday, so I showed my sister doing Southside Johnny when she was a waitress. But she, at the time, she wanted to be an actress. So, every time I was working, my mother would say, "Well, you kind of role for your sister?" I said, "Of course, she's my sister." And I love her, and that's fine. Later on, actually, my wife to be was in a lot of A&E biographies when I would do. There was a shot you also weren't here for yesterday, but there was a quick shot where you see a shadow, and that was my wife. And then, of course, in playing Patty, it's about my wife. So I think we were both very proud of doing it. I think there were problems with it. My wife says that while I was writing the script that, she just kept hearing me and the other writer laughing the whole time, which is not a bad thing. But like I said, it's a bad thing if the script comes out and, you're laughing. You need to be looking at the script and going, is this telling the story I want to tell? And I think at the end, maybe I didn't do the job I could have done on that. But I was proud. I'm proud of it still. I think she did a great job. And I think, to get people like Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif's one of the great actors of all time. I mean, he should have won the Oscar for Billy Bibbit. And, when Milos Forman did from what I know, was one of the most lauded film school courses of all time, which was the Columbia Film School course that Milos Forman was the head of. He wanted one person to take care of the actors in that course. He wanted one person to be the actor and director, and that was Brad Dourif. So, when John Huston did Under the Volcano, when Milos did Ragtime, there was Brad. And he was Patty's biggest fan. He still, to this day, he says, her wife should be acting. He's just a great person to work with. And Raymond Cruz was wonderful. And Patrick Warburton he's just a naturally funny, great guy who was so busy. And the fact that he took the time out, I think that's what fooled us a little bit, because I think people responded like to my wife and more. I think I should have made people respond more to my script and, made it a little, I think I could have made it better, but say Levy,
Whatever works for you.
It worked at the time, and I'm proud of it. We had a good time.
Yes, you should be. What can you tell us about John Travolta? He's had, a mixed career. He's obviously, I think, a brilliant actor. But what was it like to work with him? Just anything else you can tell us about
Sure.
what you know about him?
I spoke about him at length yesterday, but I'll just reiterate that he's my favorite guy to work with, other than Paul Newman. But Paul Newman I knew in a different way, so that's different. Just a gentleman. He's a character. He flies planes. He's a character, and there are things said about him that I'm not going to comment on now because I don't want to add to the trouble. But he is a Scientologist. The Scientologist people, they didn't give me any trouble. And as a matter of fact, at one point, John was doing a movie, and he wanted to show a clip from the movie. But we had all these great movies he had done, from Saturday Night Fever to Urban Cowboy to Grease to Pulp Fiction. Quentin Tarantino is in our show, and he said, "Yeah, here, take the clips," because clips they usually want a lot of money for. No, you don't. So Sony was doing a movie with him, and it wasn't a very good movie, but we said, "Yeah, sure, we'll show a clip. If it'll help John, we'll do it." Suddenly, we get a bill, and the bill is for thousands of dollars, and I said, "No, I'm not paying it. I'm not going to put this. Forget it." I get a phone call, and it was Sony Pictures, and they said, is Adam Friedman there? And I get on the phone, and it's one of the vice presidents of Sony Pictures, a big dog, and he goes, well, he says, if you think we're going to give you this thing for free. And I said, listen, I don't even want the clip. I'm doing it as a favor to John. If you don't want to do it, then you could call him and tell him. Otherwise, and so this guy just starts like ripping on me because, well, I'm dealing with a cowboy. So you're Cowboy Friedman. I said, oh no, that's Kinky Friedman. Kinky Friedman's a singer in Texas. I'm Adam Friedman, and I'm directing this, and we won't be using your clip, so thank you very much, and you're rude. So I hung up. That night, I was at home, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was this can you hold on, please? So-and-so from Scientology wants to speak to you. And I'm like going, oh, they, what now? And it was this guy from the Scientology, and he says, we heard there was a problem today with Sony Pictures regarding the John's movie. And I said, there was. And he said, well, there won't be a problem. I'll never forget this quote. He says, you are now under the umbrella of Scientology. And of course, to hear that, one has mixed emotions. One, that's like a mafia guy coming up and saying, yeah, the Gambino family loves you. Well, that may be good until the Gambino, family wants to, we want a favor, I said, well, okay, but I mean, there's no quid pro quo here. I mean, if you want the clip of the movie, I'm happy to show it. The next day I get a phone call and it's like, anything you want, show the whole movie if you want, you're good to go. It was funny. And that was, I know John had something to do with that. He always went out of his way to let us get what we needed to make something good happen, given what we were trying to accomplish. And as I said, we were nominated for an Emmy Award. We didn't win, but we should have. But I would say that, wouldn't I? But he just a wonderful human being.
See here. And forgive me if this was also discussed yesterday and I had to miss the class. Meryl Streep, that's pretty high level stuff. How did you get her? What was it like to work with her?
So Roma said to me, give me a copy of the movie. And we had the movie and we had someone do a rough narration on it, but I gave her the movie. There was some music in it, and Roma got it to Meryl. And I got a phone call from her assistant, and she said, Meryl likes the movie. Can we speak? I said, yes, yeah, I can speak. So we started talking. Like I said, she's a phenomenally nice, reasonable, incredibly talented actor. And she knew exactly what was going on. And as I said before, she let me direct her, which, as I said, we disagreed on some things, and then we tried it, a couple of ways. And, one time I got it, one time she got it. It was a good thing. And by the way, cherry on the cake, this was on a Saturday, and the Oscars were the next day. So there she was, and all she wanted was some tea. And, so we had like 6 sessions with her. And this one session was the last one. And, we had booked like 7 hours for it. She did almost every take was one for one, which is unheard of. And I think the longest problem we ever had was 3 takes for one, keeper. The 6 hours was like 2.5 hours. It was just, I love her. She's just a great human being.
Well, it's wonderful. Actors have a bad reputation, as you know, and famous ones perhaps even more, as being self-involved. It's just all about me, me, me. So it's really wonderful to hear that isn't necessarily the case.
Well, we could do a separate one on the asses that we had to deal with, but I already did my Richard Gere one yesterday. There's more, but no, when you get that big, it's different. Some of them are like the Gene Hackman, very difficult. Someone said they were telling a story about him, and someone came up to him, was trying to say something. He said, by the way, and the lunch is great. It's fit for a king. So Hackman turns around and he goes, here, king, come here, boy, here, king. Like, he was just such a jerk and such a brilliant actor, and it was just, wow. But there's a lot. But I will say, when you get really famous, if you're that much of a jerk, it's hard to be. You know what I'm saying? People get that, after a while. They'll get that. So yeah, no, I've been blessed. I've had some really good people to work with, and John Travolta was very good. Paul Newman was great. Mick Jagger was great. A lot of good ones.
So I got to hear
Dolly
about
Parton. By the way, Dolly Parton was so wonderful, very sweet, very kind. Sylvester Stallone was great. And I'm not a big fan, and our politics are very different. Couldn't have been nicer. And it was funny because we did him doing a doc on Bill Clinton, and I thought, how can Bill Clinton be friends with Sylvester Stallone? But no, they were friends. And No, Sylvester Stallone was the only guy we ever did a video on who came to the offices to thank everyone, like individually, shook their hands. You know, he just couldn't have, he was very nice. He was a professional. He was cool.
That's great. And just, does anybody else want to ask any questions or comment? Okay. You've had a wonderful career. I hope it continues. And we thank you very, very much for being with us for these 2 sessions. I'll go back and see the recording. But
It was an honor, and thank you very much. And I'll just say, if any of you come across anybody that's looking for, because I've decided, I told this to Judy, I'm going to start going around giving speeches, giving lectures and speeches, because I see a lot of people that are doing it that suck and that are not very good and have nowhere near the stories I do. So if any of you hear of anyone, let Judy know and she'll let me know. And I thank you all for being a great audience, and it was a pleasure, and you allowing me to revisit some moments of my life that are really important and wonderful.
Wonderful. So let's all thank Adam, and there we go. Okay, there we go.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hey, Julia, you'll send me or Julia's gone. Julia, will you send me a tape?
I'll follow up to make sure she does.
Thank you, Judy.
Okay. Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.